Let me turn it on again right now. So you should be able to see that. Can you guys see that it's recording? All right, I think this should be working. I see a note for me that it's recording. Emmy, are you able to see that? Sorry, folks, we're still getting our logistics set up.
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, and I think that we have 7, 8 members of our panel here from the DAC. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys all for your patience in doing this tonight virtually at the last minute. I'm sorry that we changed it at the last minute. It's because of a break-in that happened here at 555 Franklin, which makes it impossible for us to use our usual in-person meeting space. So before we get started, I just want to let you know that we will be doing public comment at 7:45, and we will ask you to raise your hands then, and we will call on you to share your comment for, I believe, 60 seconds. If you are on the advisory committee or you're a staff presenter, you guys will be able to share your comments in the chat and everybody will be able to read them. And we will also have you unmute yourselves to speak. Before we get started, let me introduce our panel. We have members of the District Advisory Committee here to provide their input. Thank you guys for giving your time to this. We have several members of district staff. So district staff, would you guys unmute and introduce yourselves, please, if you are presenting tonight?
I'll go first. Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Jean Robertson, and I am the Assistant Superintendent of Special Education Services. And I'm going to pass the mic to my partner. She knows who she is, Jenny.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Payne. I am the Executive Director for Special Ed and the partner in crime of our dear Jean Robertson. I'll pass it to Dr. Aguilera Ford.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson and Ms. Jimenez Payne, Carlin Aguilera Ford, and I am the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services. And Educational Services has special education programs and language programs as well. So that's why I'm here today. Thank you, and I will pass it on to Mr. Miguel De Losa.
Thank you, Dr. Aguilera. My name is Miguel De Losa. I work in multilingual programs, and I'm the Director of Humanities. And I'm here to talk about all the language programs in the current state. I also want to acknowledge that Christina Wong is here. Christina, can you present yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Miguel. My name is Christina Wong. I'm a special assistant to the superintendent, and I'm part of the language program team. Thank you.
Thank you, team. We also have several members of Civic Edge Consulting here tonight. They're helping us take notes. They will facilitate part of the meeting, and they will help us with public comment at the end. So thank you all for being here as well. Okay, so just as a note before we get started, I want us to go through again the role of this committee. So for the DAC, you've heard me say this many times, but want to make sure that it's clear for everybody else who's here. So the District Advisory Committee provides feedback on proposals to match resources to student outcomes. They consider the implications of proposals on the people that they represent, and they will consider the big picture and trade-offs. So investing more in one resource or activity usually means that we invest less in another resource or activity. Dr. Wayne shared this roadmap of the Resource Alignment Initiative at the School Summit on March 2nd. There are 5 parts of the Resource Alignment Initiative. The first one is creating a new school staffing model. This committee gave feedback on the school staffing model in November and December, I believe. There's also reorganizing the central office, which we received your feedback on in March. We explored generating revenue from our properties in January. Today, we are talking about investing in priority district-wide programs, and then we've spent several months building our fact base for a conversation about creating a portfolio of new schools. Okay, so again, today we are very focused on district-wide priority programs. we're going to hear today about special education and language pathways. This is the roadmap that the advisory committee has followed. We started off with things closest to the student experience, so the ideal school staffing model, and then today we're working through research validated programs supporting student outcomes. The supporting environment for our students is central office services and selling or leasing properties. And as we talked about early in our sequence of meetings, we will only get to criteria for mergers, closures, and co-locations after we've looked through all of these other resource areas and made sure that we can't reduce resourcing there before we get to the question of mergers, closures, or co-locations. All right, I received a request from the feedback that you gave to Civic Edge about our norms. And so I want to reinforce here, step up and step back and make sure that we are allowing balanced speaking time. I think the comment from some members of the advisory committee was that some people are taking a lot more airtime and some people aren't speaking up as much. So if you've been taking a lot of space, please make space today for your colleagues. And if you haven't been speaking up as much, please feel empowered to do so. You are welcome to put your comments in the chat if you are a panelist, and everybody will be able to read them, or you can speak aloud whenever you'd like. Okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes of comments here. Thank you guys all for making time to meet with Civic Edge and providing your feedback. This is a quick rundown of feedback that I heard. We just talked about norms. I heard that feedback is really helpful and you guys like us to play back what you've heard. I also hear that we sometimes spend a little bit too long on the feedback section. And so that's why I'm going to limit us to just a few comments here today. I heard that small groups are not always time well spent and that you guys want us to remind folks exactly what we're doing with this time and then have staff sit in on small groups to listen and redirect as needed and clarify how the feedback will be used. Today we'll be really clear about what your feedback is for, and because SFUSD does not support small groups as part of a webinar, everybody's comments will be public and we'll get to skip the small groups this time. I think there's a question about what the district wants, how your feedback is being used to develop criteria, or if there's already some underlying plan or list that you guys are a rubber stamp for. The answer to this is, I hear you. We haven't always been super clear about how we're using your feedback in meetings. There is no list yet. Today we'll talk about the May meetings where your feedback will be most important to make sure that you have everything that you need to provide good feedback then. And then the last thing here, the survey criteria, I heard that that wasn't even very clear to you guys what the criteria were about. I think we talked about this in our meeting, and next week or at our next meeting, May 6th, we'll make sure to give you a really clear summary of what each of the criteria are. And we will also work with Stanford to make sure that the next survey is as clear as it can possibly be. Are there any comments from our DAC members about this feedback? Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Let's make it quick. I think that the survey criteria, the criticism that I had and that maybe I heard other people had was more along the lines of that they were kind of vague and unclear what they meant, more than, you know, more than like that there was any expectation that they be weighted yet. So anyway, that's all I'll say about that.
Thank you. Yes, and what I'm trying to explain is at our May 6th meeting, we will try and get very, very clear about what these criteria are so that it's super clear to you guys what we're giving feedback on. And Karen, I see your hand. Oh, you're on mute, sweetie.
I just wanted to mention that, you know, there's a lot of talk about Stanford involvement on how we look at data and metrics methodology. And, well, you know, they're down the road a piece, and there are universities like SF State and others who are actually quite busy with public populations. And I just want to mention that Stanford, for, you know, Well, that's just lovely. Is there a price tag on their analysis and support?
Yes, I believe that we are paying them, but I do not know how much we are paying them.
Well, just to mention it, I mean, there might be grants available through, for instance, SF State, and their actual research graduates of Stanford who work there, you know, and I'm just saying, you know, being somewhat intimately familiar with Stanford and the things that go on there, this public school system in Palo Alto, and I was on the school board in Palo Alto. I'm just, you know, while we enjoy a very good reputation in this sense, our expertise in every kind of school and setting, you know, I mean, there might be others that would weigh in. That's about all I'm saying.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Karen. I appreciate that feedback. Members of the advisory committee, is there any other feedback that you guys want to provide here? Okay, seeing none. I see that there's a question from the public. Will there be public input for criteria to evaluate the whole realignment plan? Yes, there is actually a community meeting this Thursday evening to get public feedback, and there will be several other community meetings during the next few weeks. Okay, a piece of follow-up from a question that you guys asked a while ago. The district advisory committee members had asked whether focal students were performing better depending on different school sizes as a way to understand the performance data that's been shared. So the research planning and assessments team did begin this analysis, but they didn't find anything that was statistically significant for San Francisco Unified. I put their research brief in the DAC materials folder and I shared it with all of you. The RPA team thought, however, that Paul Gardner's analysis, which is linked right here, provided most of the information that you guys were looking for. So folks who asked for this, did you have the chance to review these materials and do you have questions? Because I'm happy to relay them to Devin. Go ahead, Teddy.
Yes, so it, oops, sorry. I think I have to change that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Yeah, I just wondered, Paul Gardner, he's not a professional. And it's not peer-reviewed work. So I just wanted people to know that. And I wondered if you could speak more to how you don't have some of the data because of COVID closures, right? Like growth, for example.
I think that's right. I am not in the research team, so I think that whatever they put in their brief is the information that I know about.
Yeah, like I just couldn't, I mean, the Paul Gardner, it's not, I mean, he himself says he's an amateur. So I didn't know if other people had comment.
I'm sorry, I can't find the hand raise feature. I've kept up with Paul Gardner's blogs for a while. I won't spend too much time to comment, but the data sources he's trying to pull from, it's based on the public data. So they're probably, if we look at that data, we should probably look at it, try to look at the sources and understand where it's coming from. And it's his opinion, obviously. But I do think he tries to take a somewhat unbiased or more objective view as much as possible, although there's always going to be some opinion and bias in any presentation. But I appreciate his work and I've learned a lot from reading it through. So in this case, the school sample size and data, just trying to look at it as another data point. And I know, Laura, you've tried to ask the district's team to see if they have anything. And right now there's nothing, but I don't know. I'm appreciative that at least there's some kind of information and we should all verify and look at the sources of data that whatever reports we're looking at.
Yeah, thank you, Orlando. That's super helpful to point out. Okay, go ahead, Debbie.
Just wanted to sort of echo what Orlando had said, and I appreciate Teddy's question. I know Paul slightly. He is a public school parent, and I think he comes to his blog with that kind of a lens. And you know, as a parent, he does what he does because he's interested in trying to contribute to the conversation about student outcomes and some of the constraints and inputs here in the district. And that's how I tend to approach reading his blog, which I have found very useful over the years.
Awesome. Thank you. Jerry?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I just want to echo what Teddy stated earlier. I mean, I saw in the results, I saw that this is a summary of the feedback that the DAC members shared with the consulting form. And I noticed that in the other more detailed information that was provided to us via email, people stated that it was important to note when people are stating opinions, which I'm a little bit like confused about, because most of us are, I mean, I've been a teacher for 19 years, right? I know there's an administrator here, a principal that has over 2 decades of experience. We know that many of us, Marisha has experience in public schools. We know that many of us come from different perspectives, right? So we all come in here with our own experience that we share based on our positionality, right? And as parents, right? We're all parents. I do, however, want to caution us to look at data that's not from an expert source, right? I think that's, we fall into a like when we want to verify, if I'm like, that's my home, that's my friend. I don't know then if that information is the most accurate information. So just that kind of like, that kind of just that worries me automatically when we're hearing these kinds of responses.
Yeah, for me, it's more just, I guess I do have some concern because Lauren, you said research planning and assessments team, they recommended this, right? And then someone approved this slide, right? And so, but this is not peer reviewed. It's not a professional. Yeah.
This is our attempt to try and answer
Yeah,
the
I
question that you
understand.
guys have. So you have the data that you asked for to the extent that it can be provided. So I'm going to move on from this slide. This is just a reminder of the roadmap of our meetings. Today we're at programs and language pathways. We talked a little bit about TK in the elementary portfolio, so we won't spend time there today. In May, we'll be at the proposed criteria for mergers, closures, or co-locations. And coming up this Thursday evening, there's a town hall on the resource alignment initiative. I'm going to ask my colleagues from Civic Edge to find the link for that and drop it in the chat, because I've noticed a couple of things in the Q&A about it. And then the board meeting for criteria for mergers, closures, or co-locations will be June 24th. Okay, here's what we are doing today. We're going to spend some time on special education, some time on language pathways, and then a little bit of time on May meetings to make sure that you guys feel like you have everything that you need as context there. So a note on why we're spending time on these specific programs. So special education serves about 13.3% of SFUSD students. Special education students attend every SFUSD school, and the total budget for special education in our district is $196 million. It's about 20-ish%, maybe slightly under 20% of the district's overall budget. Language pathways touches 22% of students in SFUSD. They're at 52 elementary and middle schools, and there are newcomer programs at 5 high schools. And then we have at least 400 teachers teaching in language pathways using the ratios. So that's about $63 million for the classroom teacher salaries and benefits alone as part of the language pathways. So we're focusing on these because they are large. They touch a large amount of students, and they're a large percentage of SFUSD's resources. And then some context on why we are doing this, because they will not be part of the criteria specifically that are voted on. We're talking about these 2 programs because we are committed as a district to providing special education services to meet the needs of students who are learning English, language programs to allow native English speakers to learn new languages, and special education students. As part of resource alignment, we will make changes to some of these programs, but they're not part of the criteria. They're part of a cycle of program improvement. So today we're asking for your feedback on how we might increase quality and sustainability of our programs. And then just a note here, there are many, many, many program types. There are 5 types of special education services, 8 types of special day class, 19 language pathways and cohorts. There's TK in many, many different languages. They're at 64 elementary schools, 13 middle schools, 14 comprehensive high schools, and I left out our 8 K-8s. So there's a lot of operational challenges here with all of these different pathways. And so after criteria are agreed to, we will be using some constraints related to matching the programs to schools that will further narrow the list of schools that we propose for mergers, closures, and co-locations. And I know that that's probably confusing, but it's just to say that we want to make sure that we're offering space for all of our students who need these programs. Go ahead, Ed. Happy to take questions here.
Thanks. So well, my question about that is just, are you saying that once, there'll be criteria agreed to, it'll identify some subset of the schools, pending equity audit, CEQA, blah, 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 blah. And then are you saying that, a presence of a lot of these programs at a school would, a presence of a lot of these programs at a school would mean that it's less likely to be closed? It would be taken off of that list, even if it ended up on the list based on criteria? Or is this going to feed into the criteria? Or, can you just say a little bit more about what you mean by it'll narrow the list of schools?
Of course. And I have a slide for our next meeting, which I think will make this a little bit more clear. I should have stuck it in here after this one. I'm sorry. I think what I'm saying is, imagine a scenario in which all of the schools with one specific language program were on the list produced by the criteria. We would not close all of the schools that have that language program in order to preserve the program, or we might move the program to a different school. Does that make sense? I know that there's a bit of there's a lot of different things that we're trying to keep in our portfolio, and that's why this is so complicated. We can talk about it more next time. I think I have a slide that will make this feel a little bit more clear. Sorry, I didn't put it in. Other questions here from the District Advisory Committee team? Okay, great. In that case, we will move on to special education, and Jean and Jenny, I invite you guys to share away.
Okay, I'm going to frame out sort of how Jenny and I are going to approach this evening. First of all, I want to just say thank you so much. This is my first DAC meeting. I think Jenny's been covering this aspect of our work to date, but I'm very much involved as a cabinet member, so I'm really happy to be here tonight. So thank you for inviting me. Also wanted to say hi to Elizabeth Sunshine. I had Elizabeth's kids probably 20 years ago at Grattan School. It may have been when the first merger conversations were taking place. So worlds are colliding tonight, and it's nice to see you still in the work. And I'm also really happy to see that we're focusing on our focal populations, and we're all represented in this room: our African-American kids, our English language learners, and our kids with disabilities. So thank you for really focusing in on our focal populations. Jenny's going to cover the first few slides and lay out sort of the complexities of our work in serving students with disabilities. And then I'm going to take over the mic and walk us through a couple of slides around the budget. So for right now, I'm going to pass the mic to Jenny, and then she'll pass it back to me in a few minutes.
Thank you, Jean. Good evening. I will be walking us through the enrollment and the types of programs or services that we offer in San Francisco Unified. So in this slide, we're sharing the general types of services that special education offers. Anywhere we offer services and assessment, anywhere from infant, newly born, we want to provide them with early intervening services, all through age 22, where we serve them in our access program. 68% of our students in SFUSD are in general education programs or services. They're receiving SPED services while they are in the general ed. And then 22% of our students are being served in special day class. And as Lauren mentioned, we have around 8 types of special day class, anywhere from mild, moderate, cross-categorical to extensive support needs program with autism. Then we have our adult transition program, which is our access program from 18 to 22. Now, if you're curious as to the location of these programs, there's a link in this deck that will show you where are all our SDCs located at in our SFUSD schools. Our GE program or RSP and related services only are offered in all of SFUSD schools. Next slide. Okay, this shows us the trend of students with IEPs in SFUSD. Please note that this number, it does not include county, private parochial, charter, non-public school. So this is the CDE. This number was taken in the CDE dashboard. But to let you know, for 23, 24, we have around 9,696 students with IEPs. That includes everybody, county, non-public school, private parochial, charter schools that we serve in SFUSD. So there's a slight difference. But if you can see here, starting from 2017 to 2023, we are seeing a trend of increase in numbers of students qualifying for services. Now, you are probably seeing this because we're seeing higher trend of students with no IEPs not enrolling in public schools. So the base data of our students is getting smaller. So it's not that we are identifying more and more students with IEPs. It's just that our base data is getting smaller, but our numbers of assessment is at least staying the same. Okay, so don't say that. Don't be surprised with this. I'm not surprised with these numbers. Now, we do our average of assessments of students that are being assessed tends to be around 12 to 13% of students qualifying for IEP, which has been relatively stable over the years. Just wanted to share that. Next slide is the breakdown to the left of this deck is the breakdown of all the special education eligibility. This is specific for special ed, right? So if you can see, majority of our students, the big chunk of our students with IEPs are qualifying under the eligibility of specific learning disability. You know, some dyslexia, if you've heard about them, they are part of the SLD identification. And then the second one is a speech and language impairment, which is generally a lot of our initial assessments are qualifying for speech and language, because we do not want to qualify students for SLD right away if they haven't been exposed to schools. So generally, we look at the qualifying a student in SLD around 2nd, 3rd grade. Okay, we want them to be exposed. Now, for one thing though that I have noticed over the years, our students with autism has been increasing. More and more students are qualifying for autism. And that's because of several factors. We're getting better in our identification. of autism. Okay, so what happened to my slide? Can we go back to the other slide? There, okay.
Sorry.
And sorry. And to the right side, I just changed this recently. You can see here, I used the correct number of 9,696 for the district. That's the total special education population. 54% of that are students who are what we call resource students, who are primarily placed in a general education classroom. Plus the RS, which is the related service only students, which are the speech and language only students, are also a big percentage here, right? Around 14% of our students have speech and language impairment as their only eligibility. And then we have our special day class, which is 22%, and then NPS. Non-public school students and RTC students, or residential treatment centers, have been consistent at around 166 students. The difference is we are seeing an increase on behavior referrals to our non-public schools. We are seeing more intense behaviors that are being referred than 5 years ago. We are also making more referral, but the acceptance has been relatively on the same percentage as in the last 3 years. The non-public schools are having the same issue of staffing as public schools. That is why they are not accepting more students than what we are making a referral for. And then private school and private school and charter are students who are in the San Francisco Unified geographical area. We assess them. For charter schools, we provide services to them in the charter schools. Here, I want to just share with you that this is the state ratio. RSP caseload is around 28, 1 RSP teacher to 28 students. And our special day class have an average of anywhere from 8 to 12 students in their classrooms with the support of a paraeducator, 1 or 2 paraeducators. Jean, do you want to take on this second part of the?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Jenny. So the over-identification for SDC, our SDC numbers are going up. I feel like on our watch, Jenny and I have been sort of the lead in special ed for the past 6 years, and it seems like we're getting more referrals to SDCs. And it's a concern because it's a more restrictive environment, and we really worked diligently as a school district over the years to be more inclusive and get more kids served in general ed. So what's going on? We do beg that question. So about 20% of students are taught primarily in special day classes, according to the state and where we get our numbers from. In SFUSD, we're showing a number of about 22%. I feel like every year we have to add a couple of new classes here and there, mostly at the elementary level. Now we know that autism numbers are on the rise. And autism often brings a lot of related services onto a kid's IEP. And sort of, let's just say they don't just get specialized academic instruction. They might have physical therapists and occupational therapists, and they'll have maybe a behavior plan where somebody had to come in and help us build out a behavior plan. So it's a heavier lift, and we're seeing more of a push into SDCs. We're also wondering, we have the hypothesis of what's going on in Tier 1 and Tier 2, which is in general education. So if we are not doing our due diligence in general ed to really scaffold teaching and provide sort of a universal design for learning in that space, if teachers don't have the equipment that we know our best practices in serving kids with disabilities, then there is sort of a leaning to go more restrictive. So that's something that we're watching and working on as a district, especially post-pandemic, now that we're sort of getting a little bit more regulated as a district to hone in on some of these concerns. So that's what this slide is. And if we go on to the next slide, we can start to pull apart the numbers a little bit. So special ed has a very large budget. For lots of different reasons. So you saw that we serve citywide. So we have our district, our pre-K-12 district, but we also have every single kid in this district that has a disability outside of our district, even if they attend St. John's or St. Paul's or urban school for whatever. We're on the hook to find that kid and assess them for a disability. If a parent comes to us, the public school system will assess them. So special ed serves the city, us, the K through 12, and the county, all of the kids outside. So this budget reflects all of that. So I want everybody to have that context. We're unique in that way. We're called a single district SELPA, S-E-L-P-A. You can put that in capital letters, and we can do another whole slideshow on what a SELPA is and what the SELPA network is another day. So these are the numbers. Can you see them okay? They're very, very small. They're even small for me sitting in front of my screen. You can see that big light blue section. That is all of the teachers and paraprofessionals that are serving at the site level. Teachers and paraprofessionals. The red box to the left, it says SPED Central office salaries. It's not just the office, it's also psychologists and all of the related service providers as well. They are on our budget. They are not on the district's on the specific school budgets. Every school gets a budget and they have their gen ed teachers, their principal, their secretary, their supplies. And then SPED does their own thing on top of that. We supplement and have SPED. And all of those psychologists and related service providers are listed as central office. They're not necessarily site-based because we have to move them around according to where the kids are. It's a little confusing. We also have a line item for the extended calendar and substitutes. When we do, for instance, safety care training, special ed does all of the safety care training, which is still not enough for the record. But when we do it 2 or 3 times a week with groups of about 15 or 20. We have to provide substitute teachers to the people who are coming to get that training. So we have to have a budget item for that. Curriculum and instruction looks small, but I assure you that Jenny and I and the team have worked very hard over the last 6 years to build up our very strong research-based curriculum for all of our kids in the resource specialist program and the SDCs. And we had a big ask last year to set up for our extensive support classes, which used to be called moderate to severe. We purchased a very big curriculum. It's going to be a little less this year because we just have to maintain it. We don't have to do the big push. The NPA, NPS consultants is sort of our struggle area because we want that to be smaller. It continually gets bigger in direct relation to our staffing situation. If anybody knows anybody who has the least little inkling to become a teacher, send them our way because we want to build more teachers. It's a beautiful profession. Even in hard times, we get through it and we're stronger together. When we don't have teachers, I always say that our mission in special ed is the IDEA. Like we have to adhere to the laws in teaching children with special education needs. And sometimes we just can't say, oh, we don't have a teacher today. We have to go out and get a teacher. And the way we're doing that in this crisis is through that line item. We also have consultants for, let me think, Jenny, help me out. Give an example of a consultant that we might consult with.
Well, we have all our IEE assessors as
There you
part
go.
of
Yes,
that
thank you.
budget.
I'm like, all of a sudden I'm having this big blank. Anytime a parent wants to option their right to an alternative assessment, they're not in agreement with one of our assessments. There are laws stated that we have to adhere to their ask for the most part. We can deny it, but oftentimes it would be more responsible in saying yes, and then taking a look at our assessment and the private assessment. So yeah, all of the private assessors take place there. Anyway, so consultants and non-public agencies. Also the NPS. So in the 6 years I've been here, the number of students attending non-public schools is within a range of 10, between 150, and it's never gone to 160, but maybe 159. It's like within that range. It doesn't necessarily change. What does change is the tuition that we have to pay. So we're mindful, very mindful of non-public schools. We don't take it lightly. But I can assure you that if a student is attending a non-public school, it's because we absolutely cannot meet their needs within our K-12 system. And some kids come to us with very complex and significant disabilities that require a very specialized school setting. At this point, we have 153 students in non-public schools. Okay, moving on, mental health services absolutely has grown over the last 2 or 3 years post-pandemic. I mean, burgeoning, and it's really impacting our psychologists as well, because psych services, our psychologists do provide what we call designated instructional support, I guess. I'm not even sure what the I stands for, DIS services. And when they have to provide DIS mental health services to a student at their school, it is impacting their assessment schedule. So they're not able to assess as quickly and as many students in the time that they typically do, because they're providing mental health services to a caseload of students at their school. And that has absolutely increased. And there's no way around it, because there's not enough resources on the other side in ERMS, which stands for Educationally Related Mental Health Services. Yes, and I will wrap this up. Operations is our fiscal data ops team. They're a fantastic group. We die without them, literally. You would imagine communications and paying the bills across the entire city. And the extended school year is what you would probably refer to as summer school, but in special ed, it's extending the services of students so that they don't fall back. So we call it ESY, and we must fund that if it's part of their IEP. And I think that's my slide. Yeah.
Thank you. I see a question in the Q&A on this slide. Does legal claims include non-public schools tuition by lawsuit?
Yeah, where is that?
It's in the
Oh,
Q&A.
right. Yes. Yep, I did. Is it funny how I passed over that one? Yes, it does. And litigation has definitely gone up a little bit in the last 3 years since post-COVID. And yes, we can talk more about that if you'd like.
Thank you. All righty. Thank you, Jean and Jenny. Civic Edge folks, I know that you guys are going to facilitate this slide so Jean and Jenny can listen very closely.
So absolutely. And thank you, Jean. Great to see you again. And Jenny, for that very concise overview of the programs, which I know are incredibly complex. And so we are hoping to use you as a resource as we start to have this conversation. And we're calling them clarifying questions. And I think this is really focused for the DAC members to have an opportunity. We're going to give it about 10 minutes to discuss 2 questions. And there may be a couple of questions that folks have to be able to get to the point where we're having a robust conversation about. The first one would be, what should the SFUSD be doing to improve Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction in general education to reduce referral to special education services? And I know you referenced briefly Tier 1 and Tier 2, but perhaps that's something that you can, for the group, just quickly provide an overview of the difference between the two.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, Jenny and I are answering these questions?
No, I'm sorry. This is just to, I think in advance of being for the DAC to have the conversation, and hopefully DAC members will be putting questions either in the chat or in the raising their hands. Thank you. I see your hands are raised. We wanted to just, because we're differentiating between tier 1 and tier 2, to make sure that everyone had the same definition of what the two are.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you need me to-
Perhaps, Jean, yeah, can you just give us an overview what tier 1 and tier 2 are?
Okay, I apologize because
no
we answered
worries.
a bunch of questions. I'm like, am I referring to that? Tier 1, think about if you have a kid in school and if they're a general ed kid and they go to their class every day and they sit down with their teacher, they are receiving tier 1 instruction. It's a general ed milieu where all kids are in this space and they are receiving general ed tier 1 instruction. If there's a slight bump or concern, there's an assessment that they do that a teacher might do, and they start to have a concern about a kid, they may have an SST, which stands for Student Success Team meeting, and they'll bring the parent in and they'll talk about all that's great and strong about your kid that they can build upon. There may be a recommendation to create a condition where a child would be pulled out, or they could receive tier 2 instruction in the general ed class, but it's done within a general ed milieu, like under the general ed umbrella. There's no IEP involved at this point. They're getting extra help. So tier 2 is an addition to what they get in the general ed setting. And that's a very simple explanation. If any of my colleagues want to pop on top of that, feel free.
I'm going to thank you for that, Jean, and perhaps just go to our DAC members, and I'll just start to call on them. Mr. Morales, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, so there might have been a little overlap. I'm going to just go ahead with questions one after another, and then maybe you'll decide how addressable they may be, or if you feel like you already addressed them. So on IEPs and 504s, what I'm thinking is the slide that says primary eligibility of students with IEPs 2023. I'm thinking that specific learning disability includes ADD and ADHD at 33% of students. That might also be spectrum on dyslexia. Is there a proportionate?
I want to just say something about that. So ADHD and the other one that you just mentioned actually fall under other health impaired usually.
Okay. Oh, okay. So ADHD and ADD are 16.7.
Yes.
I remember seeing papers.
Oh, wait, so there's some intricacies. So Jenny, go ahead and talk about the intricacies.
Yeah, OHI includes a lot more than ADD and ADHD, right? So there are students with ADD and ADHD under that category. There's also some students with some health, challenges that might be under the OHI as well.
I know that my student in this district with dyslexia, one of my children, was classified as specific learning disability.
That's right.
Okay.
Dyslexia is under SLD.
Okay, so it is not an other health impaired category. All righty. Well, my real question is, with ADD and ADHD, are you seeing a proportionate increase to the overall increase in numbers, or is it disproportionate in terms of ADD and ADHD? My next question is, when you have parents who come, I know because I've been around this, that sometimes private schools, if the kids are behaviorally challenged and stuff, they kind of push them out and we get the kids. And then the kids come into us because the school is having difficulty, the private school is having difficulty supporting ADD and ADHD kids, and maybe other, problems or behavioral challenges. I'm wondering can parents get private evaluations? Is that a permitted thing? And then they get their private evaluation and then they come to the district, and then the district is obliged to follow the guidelines in the private evaluation? Or does the district bring in a district employed or consulting a specialist to also take a look at that and make recommendations and treatment plans, or whatever that would be called. I guess it's kind of an evaluation. And then
Karen, I'm actually going to ask you to pause so that we can have some questions from other folks too, and make sure that we get the answers from Jean and Jenny.
Thank you.
Well, the first question was, are we seeing a proportionate or a disproportionate amount or increase in ADHD or ADD? I can't really answer that. My gut hunch tells me it's proportionate. What feels very disproportionate on my watch has been autism identification. And as far as if a student is in a private school and they are seeking an evaluation, they come to us first, and one of our district psychologists would conduct that evaluation on the front end. It's only when they disagree with it or they have a dispute around it when they would ask for the private one afterwards. But you can't ask for a private one at the district's expense without first coming through the district folks.
Okay, thanks, Jean. Let's go to Jerry.
All right, I'll try to be brief. I was lucky enough to work at Cesar Chavez 19 years ago when I first started, and it was one of the first inclusion schools before the whole district went inclusion, right? So I got to learn really well how to implement IEP goals and how to work on identifying and modifying my tier 1 instruction and my tier 2 instruction so that all my students were able to access the curriculum, like the grade level standards. And when I wasn't able to do that, I would coordinate with our RSP teachers or our special day class, because at that time we still had a special day class. So I'm very familiar, and actually did even think about getting a master's in special education at some point, but it's not an easy job, right? It's like one of the most challenging jobs that we have in our school district is to be a special day class teacher or an RSP teacher, because it does take a lot of coordination to make sure that we are meeting each individual kid's IEP specific plans, and then how it connects to their peers and their grade level, and then the caseloads that the staff have taken on, right? So I'm just wondering, like, if this data is showing that there does, and also to be clear, for those of you that aren't educators, teachers, and specifically, in order to have a student be identified or be tested, it does require many meetings. It requires many SST meetings with the families, with the care team. It requires that we implement modifications, that we have that documented, that we provide these modifications that are recommended by the team in a consistent way throughout a period of time, right? Before students move even into an identification or testing or evaluation process, right? So it is an exhaustive process where it does require lots of evidence that the student needs more support than tier 1 or tier 2 instruction in the classroom. So it does take specialized skills for teachers to be able to adapt their curriculum, to be able to make sure that students are feeling successful with those modifications and still able to attempt to reach grade level goals. I'm wondering what other integration is being done by SFUSD SPED in terms of connecting the general education classrooms and the training that we receive with specialized services, right? There takes a lot of collaborative work in order for students to be successful, especially in the RSP setting, to be able to meet those goals, right? I'm also wondering if there's any collaboration between CNI and the special education services in order to provide those trainings for the majority of the students who are in the general education classrooms, right? So like that piece I'm wondering. And then my last question I have is, I'm wondering, I'm an elementary school teacher, so I totally understand that model, but I'm wondering also as I struggle to understand the rest of my unit, which we represent middle school and high school, is what percentage of IEPs in co-taught classrooms in secondary, what is the percentage? Like how many of those classrooms are there that are being co-taught in the elementary? Because when they go to middle school and high school, they're no longer in the general ed. In the RSP model functions differently, right? In that secondary and in high school level. So those are some questions I have. That's
Thank
it.
you so much. You've got a couple of questions out there, and I wanted to allow an opportunity for the panelists to be able to respond to them.
I'm so glad I'm taking notes. I'm really not good at like peppering of questions, but I took notes. But before I answer them, I wanted to go back to the disproportionate question. Somebody put something in the chat, Debbie Lou, about the guardrail. We absolutely are disproportionate for Black kids in other health impairment. And that is a problem that we are working on through our CSACE work, a coordinated early intervening program. That, again, that's another big conversation that we should be having. So we do have too many Black kids being identified under other health impaired.
Is
and
that Janice's team? Is that
Yes, that is Janice's team. Yes, and Dr. Aguilera Fort oversees that. It's a general ed. We have our eyes on general ed because that is where we believe that those referrals, we know the referrals are coming from general ed. SPED takes, whoever is eligible, but we need to take a look at what's going on with that over identification, and we are. Now to Jerry's questions, you asked about collaboration at site levels and at the central level. So at the site level, lots of different things are taking place, and it's dependent on if it's a pre-K situation or an elementary situation, middle or high. The nuances and the schedules are very different. So we, our central office folks on SPED Central, work with school teams to create conditions to really get people in the room together. You also asked a question about if we're working with CNI, and we are working with CNI, and I wish that CNI and us were in the same building, frankly, and the principals were all in the same building at the same time, because that's instruction, right? So we worked on what we call a teacher landing page situation this year, where if I'm a kindergarten teacher, I can go to the kindergarten landing page, and CNI worked on all of the general ed, and SPED worked on all of the special ed. So a teacher can go in and have resources right at their fingertips, and we built that out together. We do other stuff together. When they were just doing the review for the adoptions in the pilots, we made sure that SPED was absolutely at that table. For the general ed curriculum, we need to be in that space, because you saw how many of our kids receive their services predominantly in general ed. We have to have access and add value to that conversation. Another thing that we're doing, and this, I think there's a lot of hope in this model, it's called learning centers. And learning centers it's kind of like an RSP program in elementary ed, kind of on steroids. So a kid typically gets 30, 60, 90 minutes a day RSP pull-out or push-in instruction at the elementary site level. But by law, we can serve kids all the way up to 49% of their day outside of the general ed class, and they can get very specialized academic instruction and related services on a big level rather than just a mini level, if that makes sense. So we have learning centers at 3 of our schools. And the school that started it with us several years ago has never made a referral for a student to go outside of their school to a special day class. And we see that as a success. That means they're serving that kid is being successful. They belong in that building. They're not being sent away because they don't have the services in the building. It's a hopeful model. You also said something about co-teach. Co-teach is a beast, frankly. It's a very heavy lift. And we've been doing it in the middle and high schools for probably since about 2015. And we're taking a good long look at it going into the new year, because it's not optimal. I have to question if we might be over-serving our kids using this model. It should never be a one-size-fits-all. That should be built out specifically for a child who will benefit and needs that. So we do it quite a bit. On the elementary side, not as much. It's a little bit of a heavier lift to do co-teach at the elementary level. And the last one, I just wanted you to know that a lot of elementary schools we're empowering their special ed teachers to truly be experts in the building, and encouraging some kind of a setup that works for everybody, and people are feeling valued in an office hours kind of a situation where they're the expert and they can be a consultant to their gen ed peers. Anytime we can do a co-planning, that to me is one of the most beneficial and important things we can do in any grade level is co-planning. Jenny, did I miss anything?
You
I'm
answered
I'm
them
gonna
all.
I'm gonna
Thank
jump
you.
in here, everybody. Sorry, as the timekeeper. We are gonna have to move on, but I know Maricha's had their hand raised for a while. Is it a short question, Maricha, that we could, or comment that you'd like to make?
Yeah. I'm as a member of DAC, I'm really unsure of how our current conversation is helping us to shape or inform our end goal. I'm a little bit lost, and so I guess we'll review that and we'll have some feedback back at our next meeting. But I hear the understanding. I hear the need to understand what how our special education programs work within the district. I did not hear maybe like where they're located, what it looks like if we don't have access to them, what it looks like if schools are merged together and families lose access. Like I didn't hear that in our conversation, and I thought that that would be helpful in thinking about criteria and things to inform the criteria. As we know, special education is going to always receive funding behind it because it's based on the student's need and the district's need. So we know that in that area, funding won't be cut, but what does it look like to serve our students in a really good way if we are talking about closures, mergers, and co-locations?
Thank you so much for that question. That is kind of an overarching one to keep in our minds as we move forward for continuing conversations at the next DAC meeting. So thank you, Maricha. Appreciate that. I'm going to hand it back to the language programs team to discuss the variety of language programs in the school district.
Okay. Actually, before we do that, Jean and Jenny, do you guys want to have one last go at Marisha's question?
Oh my gosh. Well, that is the question.
It is the
right?
question.
What do I think, I think it would be really helpful if we did the think tank, or you even took some time, the DAC, to bring it to the next level. So what will the impact be if we're collapsing or merging or, co-locating? What I can tell you is we'll have our eye on it the whole way and protect to the greatest extent possible the work that we do and keep it. I also see it as an opportunity, frankly, right? If we know that certain pieces are really working, and this might be an opportunity to introduce something new, like for instance, the Learning Center, if that's really something that we can grow and expand on, then maybe we should be looking at that. We also obviously have to always look at the bottom line financially. Yes, we get money behind it, but we have to be fiscally sound with the money as well. And I just think that now is the time to work in coordination with, it's like the three-legged stool, right? The realignment and the reorganization post-pandemic, and just being really mindful of who's being served and who's not, or who's being overserved and over-identified.
Thank you for that. I know there may be some other questions and comments. DAC members, please put them in the chat. We'll make sure that they are not only considered for future meetings, but we can get back to you on some specifics. So I'm going to pass it on to the language programs part of the presentation.
Thank you. Dr. Aguilera-Fort?
Thank you, Lauren. Good evening, everyone. Carlin Aguilera-Fort. And as stated before, I am the Associate Superintendent for Educational Services. Under Educational Services, we have special education programs. We have multilingual pathway programs as well. Today, you will hear about the current state of our language programs, and Mr. Miguel de Losa will do that presentation, and there will be support from Ms. Christina Wong as needed. However, I just want to highlight the key pieces of our multilingual programs. One is connected to this idea of the student and graduate profile. And we want our students all of our students in the San Francisco Unified School District to graduate as independent thinkers with sense of agency, creative skills, and in terms of our multilingual learners, we want them to include attainment at high levels of English proficiency, mastery of grade level standards, and opportunities to develop proficiency in multiple languages. And at the same time, we are committed to providing language programs to the students in the San Francisco Unified School District. The superintendent is committed to continue with our programs, and I just want to highlight that very, very clearly. We are committed to continuing with our multilingual programs. And I will ask Mr. De Losa to continue, please. Mr. Miguel De Losa. He will walk us through the programs as we have them right now.
Thank you, Dr. Carlina Aguilera Ford. We're going to start with what is the student journey for multilingual proficiency. And the first row in the top, you're going to see a multilingual. We use multilingual or English learner as the same, there's the same term, but we try to use multilingual just because they are not just English learners, they are learning many languages. So when they're enrolled and they're identified, they take this LPAC, and then we provide language and services for those students, including IEPs. Then they go to reclassification, and they can earn the seal of biliteracy in high school. For all other learners, there is many entry points, but you can see you could start in pre-K to 5, then in middle school and high school, there are language programs, world language programs, and they also can earn the seal of biliteracy. Next. So this graphic is just to let you know, like, how do students access language programs in different times. So as you saw, pre-K, we have many dual language programs that students can attend. In elementary, TK5 elementary, we have biliteracy programs and immersion programs that then go to middle school, and they have 2 courses in the target language or advanced world language. And of course, we talk about high school and getting their seal of biliteracy. For world language in elementary school, we have some programs right now. We hope that we can grow. And they go to the world language in middle school, and they can be placed in high levels of literature in high school. Thank you. Next. So just to reiterate, Dr. Carlina Aguilera Ford said, we are committed, and part of our commitment is to have research-based language programs. And we take many of the guidance and researchers, we have talked to many of them. And this is just a simplified way to let you know that at least 50% of the instruction in the target language has to be in Spanish, Cantonese, or Korean. And by 3, 4, and 5th grade, the 50% has to be in English. What are the goals? Bilingualism, biliteracy, academic achievement in both languages, and social competency. The Center for Applied Linguistics and all the researchers that we talk to, they recommend a strong implementation of language programs. They say the percentages are, they provide similar outcomes, but the main thing is we had to do a strong implementation of the programs. Next.
Miguel, before you go to the next slide, could you define LPAC? There is a question on that in the chat.
Oh, LPAC is the assessment that students take to identify as English learners, and is usually given in kindergarten when the students enroll, and they answer in the home language survey that they speak other languages besides English.
And one key caveat is that it is a state mandated assessment. So by legislation, we must assess every student that is identified as a second language. learner of English.
A potential too, yeah. So here are the dependencies for effective implementations. We put all this together with the literacy, the theories, and also like the reality that we are facing. So the first thing that we need is students, and then we need qualified teachers that provide that instruction. We also need school leaders that know exactly what the expectations are, and they're helping to implement the programs as best as they can, and they ask for help when they need it. And the programs are aligned to the program models, and people are not just making programs as they go. That the programs in the schools are culturally responsive and learning environment, not just for the students, but also for the parents. That is a rich welcoming for the parents, and they participate with their students in the school. So the last two is like we need instructional resources and assessments in all the languages that we provide. And we need continued professional development for language acquisition and bilingual instruction. Next. This is, you may ask yourself, like, what is the difference between immersion programs and biliteracy and world language, as we've been talking? This is what we call it the four main points that you need to understand. And let's start with the ELI immersion programs. The number one thing is like there are different demographic of students. It could be native students, bilingual students, and English-speaking students. So it is a mix of many students in the classroom in the immersion program. The instruction is designed for language learners of different levels. Curriculum is the same as biliteracy. That means that they have the resources, and we have many languages available. For biliteracy, it's the same demographics, so only native and bilingual students can attend. Instruction is tailored to the needs of native speakers with immediate access to the core curriculum. The curriculum is the same as the DLI, and we only have Cantonese and Spanish. So one is for many students, biliteracy is just for Cantonese or Chinese students that speak Cantonese and Spanish. The other one, world language, is kind of like general education. Any student can attend if they go and register to that school, and they receive 30 to 45 minutes at least 3 times a week of language instruction. We have Arabic, Vietnamese, Spanish now, and we're gonna go for Mandarin or Cantonese. Next. So this has been our challenges throughout the year. The capacities have been reduced because low enrollment in the programs. And you can see, you can read through the row, and the top line has all the capacities and the open seats for those years. And the next year they were adjusted, and there's still open seats, so they keep adjusting into, we try to get us, the capacity has to meet the demand. So these are the programs, and you can see there is some of them with higher levels of open seats, and there are others that are closely, to 100%. Can we go to the next one? Next. So, oops, now go back. Go back, yeah. So this is for other programs, like you have Korean immersion is full, 100%. For Mandarin immersion, we have 92%, Filipino 86%, and Japanese 87%. So remember that the capacities adjust every single year according to the applicants. Next. So this is what I want you guys to pay attention. What are the budget implications if we have a language program in a school? And I'm going to give you 2 examples. The first example is if we have a dual language immersion school, along with general education. There are two programs in one school. And the dual language immersion has two classes. So you can see there kindergarten 22 and 22. In general education, there is always one class. So there are 3 kindergartens, you know, 2 dual language immersions and 1 general ed. That is fine. But when they go to upper grades, there is a gap of 11 students because each teacher is accounted for 33 students. So you see in general education, you cannot have 44 students in one classroom. I don't think we have classrooms big enough for that. So there is always a gap that we need to cover that. For upper grades, they have 2 different, 44 and 44. It could be one grade level, 4th grade level, 1 4 5, and 1 5th grade. Many times the schools just do all combos to avoid this, and they repeat the curriculum as they go, like science 1 year, they use this units, and the following year they follow the other ones. Next. So this is an example of illiteracy, the opposite. If we have 2 general ed classes and 1 by literacy, you can see when you go to 4th and 5th, there is always a gap of 11 students in 4th and 11 students in 5th. The general education can be fine, you have 4 or 5 combos, and you always had that issue with the money. Lauren, you want to say that?
Sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Can I just say one more thing?
Please,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. What you notice here is actually a big problem because some schools have 3 different language programs. So when one is getting less enrollment, then all of a sudden we have combo classes. And that at the end, parents don't like combo classes. Nobody likes combo classes, I guess, not even teachers. It's very challenging, and enrollment becomes more fragile in those schools that only have 1 program, 1 classroom. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Okay, just a quick note here on language programs. Language programs make up about 1/3 of our seats in elementary school at this time. And our district advisory committee has asked us various times about the new elementary student assignment policy. And I want to share that because we are reserving so many seats for language programs, our colleagues at Stanford has told us that it is mathematically not possible to guarantee every student a seat in their zone as described in our new assignment policy. What this is saying is basically just that because we're holding so many seats for language pathways and K-8s for things that are outside of the neighborhood attendance areas, that's why the neighborhood attendance areas don't work as they should. And there's also the thought that zones are unlikely to work as they should because of the fact that we're holding so many seats outside of neighborhood assignment. So what this means is that there's a trade-off that needs to be made between holding so many spaces for language programs and the guarantee of a space in a zone as described by our policy. And because DAC has asked so many questions about this, I just want to bring up this trade-off so that we're all clear on the things that we're choosing as we are thinking about language programs. Our colleagues at Stanford estimate that with the number of language programs we have now, there's about a 10% shortage of seats for kindergarten in different zones every year. That's what this graphic down here in the bottom right is showing us. This is a simulation showing us where there's not enough seats in some years and too many seats in other years in different possible zones. And so this is kind of similar to the amount of kids that are designated currently each year. So the shortage is mirroring our current problem with lack of predictability. I know this is probably super confusing, so I will answer questions about this in a second when we do clarifying questions, but I will turn it back over to Miguel.
I just want to say something else about the previous graph, that when we have just one program for the whole school, like Korean or just 2 Japanese, then we have to open those programs to the whole city. Otherwise, they're just going to be restricted to one zone, and I don't think that's fair for all the families. Next. So we met with many times with researchers and principals and other staff members. And we talk about like what would be a good guiding principles to design a new program portfolio. And the first one is access. Like Dr. Carlin said, we want to provide access to language instruction to all the students. And we want to avoid racial isolation and linguistic isolation and provide cultural diversity in the programs too. Then we have the sustainability. Can the programs be sustained on their own? And you saw the budget constraints if you have 2 classrooms or 1 classroom. Of course, we want the programs to be robust. We had to minimize the budget impact. And quality. Quality versus quantity. I think we had to offer more quality throughout the city in the programs that we offer rather than quantity, because then we can actually staff schools with high qualified bilingual teachers and provide PD and other resources that they need. That's it, Karen. Lauren.
Okay, let's do clarifying questions from the DAC and then have our team answer some clarifying questions from the Q&A. Does that work, Civic Edge?
Yeah, great idea. Does anyone in the DAC want to raise their hand? I see now.
Okay.
Pino? Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate the information, and I want to reiterate what Mauricio was saying. We'd really like to see how this would affect the merging process. Love the SPED, and SPED is very close to us too, because a lot of our PI students are in SPED. And also language program. I wonder sometime if it would be good for our PI community to have a language pathway, because when they come to the school, they speak English, but when they go home, they speak our own language. So as much as and as I know, this focus on kids coming in that are learning to speak English, but like we have kids too that goes, our kids go home and speak their own tongue, native tongue. And so there is no pathway at SFUSD for our kids in the language program.
Are you talking about Samoan?
Yes, Samoan. Because we have a high
building
population.
that. We're building that, by the way.
Yes,
with Ursula.
and I give credits for all the SFUSD that are doing that. And one thing I do want to see out of this is that with all this hard work, I would really love SFUSD to analyze its policy to break down any racism that it has that affects our community. Because if we do this work and it really won't go anywhere, then we just wasted time sitting at this table talking and focusing. But if the policies is not analyzed to see how it oppresses communities, then we're not doing any good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Sarah Wilson.
Thanks. I think, for this, specifically for the language pathways conversation, something that I feel like is missing, not that you can get everything into one slideshow on one night in one meeting, but something that I think is really important for me, at least, to understand about the district's language programs is a little bit about the history of them and also the rationale for why the language programs were created, the different kinds, dual language immersion versus the biliteracy programs. Also, and this is sort of general, you don't have to explain it all right now, Although some explanation would be great, but because I feel like, I mean, I know there's history there, there's some legal history, I know that,
Yeah.
right? We had a consent decree at one point, or maybe 2 points, if I'm not wrong about that. But you know, just to have some understanding about why the status quo exists as it is, because I think in order to make decisions, you know, or if you know, language programs are, and the existence of them and where they're located and so on are a factor or just part of the decisions that are going to be made by the district and opined upon by us on this committee, we need to understand why they exist as they are. Because sometimes there's a rationale for something that may be on the face of it without any context. You go, why is that? What is that about? It seems inefficient, or I don't see the logic, and we need to sort of understand that in order to be able to make those decisions.
I can tell you one, is that?
I was gonna answer the question.
Oh, go ahead, Christine.
Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks, Sarah. I really appreciate the question. So, I mean, I don't want to go into all the different legalities, sorry, I can't even speak today. All the legal issues that kind of arose from all the different programs, but it did start with the Lau v. Nichols case that you alluded to. And at that point, it was, we only had a one-size-fits-all in educating our English learners. And we were required to really think through, how do we provide programs that would really tailor to the needs of our English learners. And part of that was research-based, looking at how multilingual learner programs, biliteracy programs, bicultural programs would be more appropriate to make sure that our students, while they were learning English and had differentiated instruction, that they had access to the core curriculum. And so that it all originated to that. And then there was the other lawsuit, you hit the nail, in terms of the other consent decree that we had, the NAACP consent decree that really pushed us to have diverse integrated schools. And so some schools at that time in the 70s and 80s decided that to diversify their school population, instead of just adding one language program, to also attract other students, and added maybe a Spanish program or a Cantonese program, whatever program they had. And, you know, once that consent decree sunsetted, we saw that there was an enrollment issue for the other programs that may not have been so popular in that particular school. So we do have schools like Lau used to have a Spanish program. It still has its Cantonese program. Cesar Chavez used to have both the Cantonese and Spanish program. It only now has a Spanish program. And we saw the school programs actually it got smaller and smaller, and due to enrollment, also transportation was an issue too. There was no longer any transportation. So those were like the main reasons. There's a lot more nuance and more details. I'm sure a lot of people on the DAC actually lived through quite a bit of that. But I just wanted to at least give that piece of history.
Thank you. I was not really talking about or asking about things that I really knew much about, other than that there've been a couple of consent decrees. So I didn't want you to think I was like being disingenuous and asking about things I already knew about, but thank you. That's helpful. And I think the more of that kind of specific context that we can have, I know some has been provided at some point. Lauren, you sent us a link or two to some of that, but I think it's a really important piece of this conversation.
Great. I see that Jerry Almanza's got her hand up.
Thank you. I'm wondering if there's information. I see that there's data on not being able to provide the language programs at all the different zones, moving to the zone model. But I'm wondering, like, I know that there's data on where the programs currently exist, but I'm wondering in what situations have I saw that there's seats that are not being fulfilled and the number's been changing throughout the years. I'm wondering where that data is. I also know that there's been some kindergartens that have been consolidated this year because of enrollment. And in the last couple of years, we have been we've been communicating with many of our bilingual educators regarding this issue, right? And understanding that in some places, the programs have closed, like Christine just stated, right? Where the numbers have decreased, the enrollment has decreased in certain program areas. I'm wondering if that data is available, like what sites, where, so for example, I know Hillcrest and Viz Valley Elementary have been, and ER Taylor have been having less enrollment for their Chinese program. I'm wondering where that data is and if we can look at that. And I'm also wondering, have we gathered data from families around, is this a need? I mean, obviously that data shows us that that's not a priority, right? But it doesn't align with SFUSD's roadmap for multilingual learners that was presented at the beginning by Mr. Aguilera, which was that we do want to provide opportunities to develop proficiency in multiple language, right? And as the slides move on, I mean, there's more data on that and how it's sustained throughout the different programs and the different types of programs that SFUSD offers. I don't see that information, and just, would be helpful.
Thank you, Jerry. I think we can look into EPC historical records and then can provide that. I don't have it on right now. Okay. Can I ask a question? When you say, Jerry, when you say it was not in the roadmap, the programs that we have and that we continue, they are in the roadmap.
No, yes, I'm saying like the way that the numbers get reduced, like the current data that was presented, right? Where we're creating 4 or 5 combos and we're reducing, and then the seats have been reduced throughout the time. Like, so, right. So when we look at that data that was presented where it has a different years, now I'm having a hard time managing my multiple screens, but you know how it says like Cantonese had 1,894 in 2021, but then now in 23-24, there's only 1,375 seats, right? And then the different slides show us like, well, they weren't filled, right? They're at 88%, they're at 97. I mean, they're pretty high numbers, right? But we see that it's not at 100%, right, filled. And so I'm just wondering, like, where are those where are those needs? I mean, we know for a fact, I taught in the mission for 16 years. And I know that families that are seeking Spanish programs have left the city, right? So that does make sense to me. So like, is it the same for the people that were asking for Cantonese and Mandarin instruction, right? Or, and I see that the increase in Arabic or Korean or Japanese, those are different, right? So I'm just like, where are the students and where was the intention? I mean, I guess it's kind of connected to Sarah's, the intentions, but also like, do we value being multilingual, right? Like as a district, and how do we offer those programs?
Gotcha. Like many families have left the city because it's so expensive to live, and you can see their numbers are a trend that has happened in all the state, not just San Francisco. But just to clarify something like Cantonese biliteracy, how the range is so high is because, like you say, we close the Hillcrest program. So when you close that program, it closes a lot of seats, not kinder to 5. So that's why the reductions is like, why so high? But we can provide more information for this, okay?
Fantastic. Could we perhaps go back to the prompt that was at the beginning of this or at the end of this section, just to have spend a couple of minutes talking about this question of knowing that we need to make some changes to our programs to increase sustainability. What resonates with you under the sustainability section of our guiding principles, and what should also be considered? So what in these guiding principles resonates with you, has meaning? We're talking about access, sustainability, and then
Would you like us
quality.
to have a discussion?
Yeah, yes, please.
Oh, okay, okay. Can you go back to the actual questions?
So question, what resonates with you under the sustainability section of our guiding principles and what should also be considered? So maybe we'll go
Okay.
back to the sustainability.
Yeah.
Can we go back one slide? Yeah. So under sustainability, it says, right, language programs are implemented within a right-sized school that includes TK and SDC considerations, and that language program capacities are set up for robust enrollment to minimize budget impact.
Can I ask again for the clarity between the, like a real simple peanut butter and jelly between the 3 different models of language that we offer? There's immersion, biliteracy, and what's the third one? World language.
Mhm.
Okay.
Plus
And world
general
language.
ed. Mhm.
And world language currently exists in how many of our schools right now?
Oh gosh, I think
Okay, never
6.
mind.
Yeah, I can send you the other slides. Yeah, like,
Okay.
but
But
I can tell you the programs though. So
but it's the pathway that causes the most tension as we
Yeah.
get to the upper grades because of the increase. Okay.
because world language, it could be any student. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I have a question. It might just be terminology. For sustainability, the SDC, am I correct that that's a term from our discussion on special ed? And if
Yes.
it is, how does that connect with this topic in terms of right sizing language programs with respect to special education considerations and TK?
Well,
Christina, you're gonna go ahead.
Okay.
Sure. So as we think about our portfolio of schools, we want to make sure that that we are able to actually accommodate the different service needs and program needs. So in terms of language programs at a particular school site, we want to also think about adding a TK. And then if the school is large enough, also add 2 to 3 classrooms for a SDC. So we want to make sure that that all fits under one building, and we do have many different sizes, small, medium, large, extra large schools. So in that consideration, we want to make sure it all kind of fits all together and not competing against each other, which is oftentimes what ends up happening.
Can I say something about that? Because I just see again a bold opportunity. I like to think that just because a kid has an IEP or a disability, it doesn't impact their access to language programs, right? If they're a double winner. So we do have, like, for instance, one of our schools that has special day classes, but it's an all immersion school. I think it's Huerta. And so we really try to build out the special day class so that it is part of the entire community. So they're taught in Spanish, and we bring kids in who have Spanish as a home language. We're trying to match up is what I'm trying to say. So I think that we could expand that philosophy also and not say, oh, you can't go to that school because you have a disability and we don't have your program there. It would be nice to build out some programs where kids can have access to all the programs that they need and want.
That was helpful. Thank you so much.
I see Ty's
I
hand.
see a new name, Ty Schumann. You have your hand raised?
Yeah, I'm wondering if how do we make sure that schools that have language programs may continue to stay in the neighborhoods that have historically, I know demographics change, but let's say, if you have a Spanish program in a predominantly, an area where there is a Latino community, when we're thinking about not the immersion necessarily, although could be. How are we making sure in our data of co-locations, mergers, closures, that we're not taking things out of communities, especially language programs, which are at the heart of kind of bicultural biliteracy, right?
I think, Ty, that's a great question. One of the things is like, how are you guys can start drafting the criteria, and that could be one of your points of criteria. How do you support those schools that are still you want to have as anchor in the city? There is a lot of traveling. I just have to say, parents travel a lot. You think that students live in the next block, but it's not. Many times they travel around 4 or 5 miles just to go to a school site. Morales has a question.
Isn't world language the high school 2 years language program? World languages is kind of I mean, I know this has come on recently, but I just want to clarify, isn't world languages for the high school graduation requirement?
Yes.
It is.
The next question that I have is that those of you who spend a lot of time worrying about this and trying to tweak it and refine it and make it better, I mean, do you have any comments you'd be willing to share with us about immersion versus biliteracy? And the reason I ask is I've been a classroom teacher and I'm a Spanish certificated teacher, and so I do have some opinions about it, but really you guys have a broader, greater view of it across languages and communities. So it might be nice to know, I mean, I hear in your explanation that you say that there's some tough things on here to consider, and I'm wondering if you could share what you think the strengths of, just slightly, maybe a couple comments even would help us, strengths and weaknesses of each program. That is immersion and biliteracy. World language is a requirement around the state to go to university, and it's different than the seal of biliteracy, which is a nice goal.
Both of them have value, like, you know, like they provide a space for students to learn both languages. So there is not competition between DLI or biliteracy. They are equally important for us. So yeah. In terms of what you say, high school, yes, they have to take 2 courses, but we hope that they get higher courses if they are already taking a language since kindergarten.
Miguel and team, can I have you guys ask a clarifying or answer a clarifying question from the chat? What kinds of changes are actually being considered? Are you considering not teaching certain languages anymore or reducing capacity?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Yes, the question says, what kind of changes are actually being considered to language pathways? Are we considering not teaching certain languages anymore, or are we considering reducing capacity?
No, I think that we're just talking about the programs with the state. You know, we're not eliminating programs. As Mr. Carlin Aguilera and Dr. Wayne have said, like, we want to continue with the programs. We just need to know where it would be better to place the programs across the city to be sustainable, as you mentioned. Camille?
Oh, maybe I missed this, but so who makes the decisions on, do the sites make the decision? Well, I'm just thinking, because that's my question, is that I just wanted to know, how does a site, a school decide, I mean, who decides for the language that's going to be taught at that school? Because I remember when my son started at Clarendon, my oldest, they were doing teaching Italian. Of course, at Clarendon there's the Japanese, but then they got rid of it, and I thought the Italian, because I thought they said that they didn't have a teacher, or there wasn't money for the Italian teacher. So I'm just maybe I missed it. Like, that's my question about how are languages decided in schools be taught.
Well, there is that, you know, we had a portfolio person before, and the schools can apply to have a language. In situations like that, like Italian or French, there is very few teachers that have credentials here in San Francisco. And when we look at California dashboard, there is few given each year. So we always have to, when we consider open a program, we need to see, like, are there teachers and are there materials that we can provide, the consistency to implement this program. So that happened in that school, and it was a Russian too, and they were consolidated way before that I arrived to MPD, multilingual programs. And most of the time it was because there was not teachers.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
So I think we're going to take one more question and comment. I know that there is so much still to get to, but we also have quite a few folks out in who want to provide public comments. We want to give them an opportunity as well to comment on this. Aaron, I think I saw your hand up. Am I correct in that?
Are we still doing DAC? Because I see Now's hand up as our last DAC member comment.
Okay.
Or are you
I
moving
did
to
not-
public comment? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Well, I think we had a couple more slides. Did you not before public comment, Lauren, or are we?
I will do the slides for next meeting afterwards so that we
Ah.
can stay as close as we can to public comment, if that's okay.
Got it. Okay, well, let us move to public comment. I'm going to ask everyone who would like to make a comment to raise your hand in the Zoom. And I will try and call on everybody. We've got about a minute per comment because we want to get through everyone. So if you could keep your either comment or your question short. We may not be able to get to all the questions tonight, but please put them in the chat. We'll make sure that they get answered and are recorded. So I am going to go into, let's see. I'm looking at raised hands. Okay, I'm going to start with Andy Lee. Andy, would you like to take yourself off mute and provide your comment or question?
Hi, thank you, DAC members. My name is Andy Lee. I am an SFUSD alumni with two SFUSD kids. I attended Argonne, Roosevelt, and George Washington High School. I'm here today because I'm deeply concerned with the district's review of the potential elimination of some K-8 schools and the K-8 system entirely. The K-8 system fills a vital alternative in the district's portfolio of neighborhood elementary schools and large middle schools. As a parent who went to a large middle school, I strongly believe that not all parents or children want or should go to a large middle school. Instead of eliminating K-8s, we should celebrate how successful they are as citywide schools. The city's K-8s are the district's most diverse schools where all students from all backgrounds can attend schools together regardless of where they live. They are truly a testament of the district's vision, values, goals, and guardrails. We should celebrate this, not eliminate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've got someone who is Mr. the FMS librarian.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to be heard. I am both a parent and educator in SFUSD. And when it came time to enroll my own child, there was only one school that would support my multiracial daughter's Korean language acquisition and cultural identity. And prior to applying, my family worked really hard to prepare our daughter to test as a native Korean speaker in order to qualify for the opportunity to join the only public Korean immersion program in Northern California. And when our daughter was assessed as a native speaker and got a seat in the KIPP program, it was a huge accomplishment for us. And it was a tremendous relief knowing our hard work placed our kid in a linguistically and culturally supportive environment from kindergarten to 8th grade. Last year, the district defunded middle grades immersion programming, and now with these alignment discussions going on, there's great fear among families and staff that the district will disband K-8s across the board. And I hope SFUSD lives up to its purported claim of equity versus equality, and instead of equally ripping apart our K-8 language communities across the board, they consider fulfilling the promise I feel was made when we enrolled. SFUSD risks not only alienating exceptionally dedicated families, but ultimately pushing more families out of the district if they do so.
Okay, Evangelina.
Hi, my name is Eva. I'm a parent at Bessie Carmichael Filipino Education Center, and I have two of my children attended the Filipino World Language Program. And I feel that over the years that I have been there, and while the district claims that the enrollment has been declining, our school has not seen any effort from the district on what they're doing for them to be able to enroll students into our program. Our program is a world language, so it's the least restricted enrollment. However, so I feel like the district is setting our language program to fail in terms of not putting a lot of effort into enrolling students. Last year, we had the consolidation of some of our grade levels, and we were wondering that while there is a declining enrollment into the language program classrooms, that they're actually adding a GE classrooms into our school. So my point is that we also need,
Can
the
you
district
start to wind up,
help and make
please?
sure that those are all students are being enrolled into our program. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Aaron Horn. Do you want to unmute, Aaron?
Sorry, I'm just looking for the Aaron Horn. There they are. Okay.
Yes, hold on a second. Yes, this is the one and only Parents for Public Schools of San Francisco. I wanted to point out the hypocrisy of the superintendent's interim goals and guardrails around a sense of belonging and closing schools for our most vulnerable populations, those who are underserved, students with disabilities, students who are immigrants, speaking multiple languages. How are we expecting them to have a sense of belonging when they are shuttled off to other schools because their school closes because of lack of high test scores, when they might not be able to achieve the standards that are set, but those students are working mighty hard and do not deserve to be punished for their life circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. We're going to move on to Parents for Public Schools of San Francisco.
Hi,
Hi there, this is Vanessa. We are all in a room in 555, and it is an amazing experience being outside of this door. My name is Vanessa. I'm the Executive Director of Parents for Public Schools of San Francisco. I want to thank some really incredible leaders here, Miguel, Christina, Lauren, for your work and special ed, just the entire special ed group, because I'm actually in their office, for all of your work. I do have some concerns, you guys, around the lack of data. I mean, the knowledge is important in terms of what these programs are, why they are important, and kind of where the declines are. But it doesn't seem like the district advisory committee has enough data to provide for meaningful recommendations. So I think it's, I actually asked this a couple meetings ago, and you may have provided what I asked, but it just doesn't seem, based on the district advisory's comments, that they have what they need. And I think that's really important. Thank you for the work you're doing, and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Ben Lind.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to start by thanking everybody for all the hard work that they're doing to take care of our children, our most precious resource, of course. I would like to echo some of the things that have already been said, particularly about the maintaining continuity through K through 8 for children enrolled in the language programs. I think this is a critical tool that we have to preserve the socio-emotional development of our children through an extremely fragile phase of their lives. Our children are both mixed race, Korean, Caucasian children, and the exposure that they get to Korean culture and language is it's an invaluable service that the district provides at Clear Lilienthal. And I would just like to strongly urge the district, the committee, that if there's any study being done to see where success is found, it would be to look at the successes of the Clear Lilienthal community and the way that the Korean immersion program unites the school community and brings together support from parents and community groups. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Sam, who I believe is a parent at BVHM.
Hi, I have 2 children in SPED at Buena Vista Horace Mann. We need more SPED data around outcomes before we make criteria. I'm in journalism, and you can't publish someone's blog without fact check. And that data on small schools is not fit to make public policy. Our experience at our small K through 8 has been very good. My child knows many children from kinder, and he has small classes. I'd say our immersion program that includes cultural competency has given a lot of our teachers and staff more tools in and around SPED. My son would not have succeeded in a larger middle school. Our RSP, who's from Chile, did not discourage my daughter, who has a speech and language delay, in learning Spanish, and now she speaks Spanish quite well, and she is succeeding. Please consider small K through 8s as a vital part of the portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Kim.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks. I'm Korean American. I have 3 children, and I was excited to not only find out about the Korean immersion program, but even more thrilled to learn it was part of SFUSD, allowing me to support the public school system. Add to that K through 8, and so at that key point entering kindergarten, instead of going to one of a few independent private schools, I chose SFUSD for both the Korean program and K through 8. I now know a lot of the families who would be impacted if something were to happen to the middle school. It would isolate those kids from their tight-knit community, but also the separation of 6 to 8 within language immersion programs violates Assembly Bill 1912 if they are not able to provide same current level of language classes. Even if they move grade 6 to 8 altogether to another middle school, it breaks up the overall community and will have disproportionate negative impact to those students. Lastly, I would encourage everyone here to think about this through the lens of attraction and retention within SFUSD. Build on what's working and what attracts people. You cut middle school or programs and you lose more students to independent.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Jin Yi.
Everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Oh, thank you. Yes, so our kids are in Clare, we're proudly in SFUSD because of the Korean immersion program. And pathway schools like Clare form the nucleus of unique school-based heritage and cultural communities that sometimes just can't be found anywhere else. So I'd like to echo Deborah, it's a uniquely competitive attraction. And I do see how the K-8 model has many benefits. It keeps not only the students connected to each other, but also the families. And so when you have teachers that know these students for all those years and these students know each other, then it gives a significant social boost to students through those really tough middle school puberty years. So I think we should
wrap it up.
USD lean into K through 8. So thank you. I'm hoping we can take the Clare model across the SFUSD, create diverse and integrative school communities that meet our budget goals.
Melissa Konigsberg.
Hi, my name is Melissa Konigsberg. I'm the parent of a 1st, 3rd, and 7th grader at Clear Lilienthal. I wanted to just echo a lot of the fellow parents. My kids are Korean and Caucasian, and this school is an incredible place for my kids to learn the Korean language and also learn a lot about their Korean heritage. I want to just ask you to please take into consideration the tremendous success and desirability of schools, K-8 schools like Clear Lilienthal, the higher application rates than regular middle schools, the higher academic achievement than middle schools, that they're more welcoming environments, than middle schools, safer than middle schools, and there's a higher retention rate than middle schools. A lot of parents at our school were really
hard to wrap it up
when SFUSD defunded language immersion program in middle school, and just want to encourage you to continue to fund this great program.
Thank you very much. Bridget Dyer.
Hi, my name is Bridget Dyer. I'm sorry, my camera's not working well. I'm a parent at BVHM, and I really appreciate everything the DAC has done to thoughtfully listen to the issues that affect the K-8 schools. I have a child in special ed, and I have a child in immersion. Both of them are fluent in Spanish, despite the fact that I am only sort of fluent in Spanish, and my husband even less so. I really appreciate this, and this is one of the things that attracted me to Buena Vista in the first place. I heard that I was going to have small class sizes, 22 students, and that I was going to have dual language immersion through 8th grade, which seems like the minimum for them to become literate in Spanish, not just be able to speak it. I also am very concerned that my child with special ed is not going to be able to maintain his Spanish or perhaps maintain his place in a classroom with such a big increase in students. That's a big issue for sustainability for special ed. Think about retention.
Thank you for that. Lisa Son.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. My name is Lisa Son, and I have 4th and 6th graders in Korean immersion at Claire Lilienthal. Korean immersion and K-8 were the reasons we tried very hard and were committed through multiple louder rounds to try and get into Lilienthal. And we were so grateful it was a citywide school that gave us that opportunity even more. It was super important to me that my children feel the acceptance of their cultural heritage in a way I never did growing up. And my partner and I were also very committed to public schools. We thought our kids could receive a great education through SFUSD, and we're really committed to that. We already tolerated and stuck with SFUSD through the defunding of language immersion for 6th through 8th last year, done without any public transparency, by the way. And beyond the many data points indicating the benefits of a K-8 model to both students and teachers, if our middle school is eliminated and the district is essentially breaking the promise it made to families like ours who have stuck with SFUSD because of the opportunity for language instruction through middle school in languages like Korean. I'll echo others by saying, rather than eliminating the things
Please wrap up.
Attractive to families about SFUSD, I really urge the district to not make decisions that will further hurt retention of families in our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Betty Hunter.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, my name is Betty Hunter. I have a student in the 11th grade here in SFUSD. I'm also a SFUSD alumni. I just really wanted to comment on special education and understanding that students being I'm so sorry, I'm so flustered. With so many schools being co-merged and the student population increasing, that actually does a disservice to students who are in education. I'm also very concerned that this may lead to many spared parents possibly trying to sue the district because currently there is not enough staff in paraeducation as well as special day classes. And then also trying to make sure that those needs get met have already been challenging within SFUSD. And so I'm kind of worried about what that's going to look like going forward, as well as if this committee and SFUSD as a whole is even thinking about that. Also understanding that there was a conversation made about Viz Valley Elementary in their Chinese immersion class, and understanding that there is a population there that is fighting for those and that there is not an under enrollment there. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Chung.
Hi, I have a kindergartner, Claire Lilienthal, and another son who is going to go become a transition kindergartner this fall. I'm yet another Lilienthal parent who would like to express support for the K-8 model as well as for the Korean immersion program. Actually, like some of the other parents who have talked here, my daughter unfortunately was not able to get into the Korean immersion program because of lack of space. There's a lot of demand for this program, and I'd like to see if there's any consideration to actually expand the program due to the high demand.
Thank you. Thank you. Ryan Miller.
Yes, hi, good evening. First and foremost, thank you for your time and for enabling dialogue on important topics like this. An important issue for the DAC's further exploration relates to how K-8s factor into SFUSD's realignment initiative. I'm the parent of a first grader at Claire Lilienthal, and I'd like to express support for the K-8 model and advocate for the sustainment of this model within the SFUSD portfolio with sufficient resources. Discontinuing the K-8 model is regressive and will be disastrous for the academic and socio-emotional success of those within SFUSD. And according to the district's own data, K-8 schools have higher application rates, higher academic achievement, they're safer environments, they have higher retention and lower cost per pupil. So respectfully and at a minimum, I'd like to ask for the DAC to further explore the K-8 model and allow for additional stakeholder dialogue specifically on this topic at a future meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Efrain Barrera.
Good evening. I'm Efrain Barrera. I'm the director of the Latino Task Force. And I'm also the proud parent of 2 district students who have special needs. The SPED presentation really resonated with me because it clearly outlined the complexity of the program and the multitude of considerations at stake when it comes to sourcing sites in order to meet the state and federally mandated education access. However, I want to flag the point of discussion about the importance of investing in Tier 1 and Tier 2 strategies that not only support effective differentiation and inclusivity, but ultimately benefit all students. Additionally, in terms of language programs, as a community provider with the Latino Task Force, I want to note the significant importance of having Spanish bilingual programs that becomes lifeline for the many newcomer students and their families that are attending district schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Shari Serenas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shari Serenas, and I have been involved in the Filipino Language Pathway Program of the Bessie Carmichael Filipino Education Center, pre-K to 8, through my work as the program coordinator of the FEC Galing Bata program. Filipino Wales program at Bessie FEC is important to our community because this language pathway program uplifts Filipino culture and language, provides our youth with numerous opportunities to explore and understand their Filipino-American identities, and is intentional in being inclusive in learning about the diverse cultures and identities of their schoolmates. Through this program, not only will our students feel empowered in themselves, but also feel empathy for their peers and experiences different from their own. Please do not make decisions that will undermine the learning and development of our students and limit access to learning Filipino language and culture in the school district. Please protect the language pathway programs and K-8 schools and SFUSD. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Hava Kelly.
Yes, I put it in the Q&A, but again, I would like for the DAC committee to consult with the SPED department and or the CAC before making a final decision. SDC classes require certain types of accommodations. That includes a bathroom right in the classroom, accessibilities to wheelchairs, accessibility to additional equipment. There needs to be additional staffing and training at times, and not to mention that in some of these schools with these SDC classes, these students are a part of that community and are a fabric of that school. So that, as well as transportation, could become another cost barrier. So please, unless you have someone as a member of the DAC who is very, very aware of all these different factors, please reach out before you make final decisions about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Janae Kim Rubau, excuse my pronunciation.
Yes, hi, this is Jenna Kim Prabhu, and I am a mama of 3 Claire Lilienthal KIPP students, one who is a graduate, one who is about to graduate, and just wanted to add to the many voices of parents saying what an exceptional experience, educational, cultural, otherwise, the Claire Lilienthal K through 8 model has been for our family. And just to remind everybody that the KIT program at Claire Lilienthal is the only Korean immersion program in Northern California. It is precious. And our family, like many others, chose SFUSD solely because of Claire Lilienthal's K through 8 KIT immersion, Korean immersion program. So please replicate what's been successful and not take away from a successful program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Rob Mann.
Yeah, hi, my name is Rob Mann. I'm also a parent of a Claire first grader and next year a kindergartner, and would like to thank everybody for their time exploring these issues and sharing stuff. It's quite easy to tell that there's a lot of love in the Claire community, and it's a pretty special place. I think that comes through through many of the artful comments that fellow parents have made. And I really want to echo the point about what a precious gift it is. My wife is originally from Korea, and when she learned, not only determined that we got in this school, but when she even learned that it existed here, taxpayer funded Korean program, she was quite blown away by this. And the experience has been special. And we hope that the city, in considering these types of programs and what they mean, thinks boldly about how others can participate in this type of special education that is really such a gift.
Start
and
to
such
wrap it up.
Thanks.
Thank you. Laura Padilla.
Hello, everyone. Laura Padilla. I have 2 children in Spanish immersion programs. And as many folks have shared, this was an attraction for me, and attraction for many. And for many, as I also heard, this program is so essential for our newcomer families. The ability to speak your native tongue in our classroom is so powerful. Bilingualism is so powerful. And we need to provide these spaces for our children to thrive. By hearing and just relating is so many beautiful components of a bilingual classroom. There needs to be more analysis. I am so disappointed by this presentation. I am livid that we don't have expertise on this. It's not a thorough analysis. Doc, I really encourage you to get more information.
Ashley and Mitko.
Hi, I'm a 7th grader at Claire Lilienthal, and I just want to emphasize how important I think K through 8 schools are. My experience at Claire has been very amazing, and our school is very diverse. I have friends all over the city, and they think our school is so cool and like special because of our Korean immersion program. K through 8 schools help to connect kids better, and I have known kids for 7 years, and they feel like family to me. Our school is so much safer than like other schools that are much bigger through middle schools, and I love our school. And even though I'm graduating soon, I still have a brother who I hope to saves this experience.
Thank you so much for your comments. Bernice Casey. Oh, I'm sorry. Sung San.
Good evening. My name is Sung Son, and as a former SFUSD teacher who founded the Korean English Immersion Program, I have witnessed the benefits of bilingual programs beyond the enrolled students and their families. Everyone benefits from linguistic and cultural diversity and opportunities. I strongly urge refunding middle school immersion programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Velasper.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone. My name is Elaine, and I am a mother to a Filipino Wala student in Longfellow Elementary School. And, I appreciate the work that the DAC is doing. I do want to raise the issue of equity in regards to our language programs. While the Filipino language program is smaller compared to the other language programs, it serves a marginalized immigrant and historically colonized community, and we deserve investments. Our enrollment numbers doesn't paint a full picture on what's happening and how our community is thriving. Families in Wallace depend on the program not just for education for our children, but we create community. We hold events in the school to benefit the entire school community. We have events that cross relationship buildings between Bessie and Longfellow, and we participate in Filipino community
Thank you
activities.
for wrapping up.
So I think would just like to encourage the school district to look at all the ways that the language program serves our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rebecca Ma.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Ma. I have a second grader who's attending Claire Lilienthal Korean Immersion Program. As a blended Chinese Korean family, we intentionally chose SFUSD K-8 model and the Korean Immersion Program at Claire Lilienthal due to its uniqueness of the offering being the only Korean immersion program in Northern California. I sincerely hope that we're able to sustain the existing structure of K through 8, as well as the development of the Korean immersion program. Reiterating what other parents already said, it's not just about learning the Korean language, but also cultural traditions, like learning how to make Korean dumplings and pancakes in classrooms, K-pop choreography. The close-knit community is unparalleled.
Thank you for starting to wrap up.
Most importantly, I hope the committee would look into research done about intellectual, social, and emotional benefits students experience from studying in language immersion programs, as well as
Thank you. Charm Consolacion.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Charm Consolacion. I have been wanting for my child to be able to get into the San Francisco Unified School District, and I've been working in the school community for over 15 years, and I really would like to encourage the DAC to really look into ensuring that the Filipino World Language and Elementary School programs maintained for our Filipino young people. And I want him to learn Filipino. I want him to experience being exposed to his culture, his language, his people, and be proud of who he is, and ensure that the foundation for them to become strong is embedded in their learning and development. And I think that is what San Francisco Unified School District should encourage. And I appreciate all the families that's been advocating for language programs in the SF Unified District, because this is very important to us. We're all multi-ethnic, multilingual, and peoples, and we deserve the best for our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other folks who wanted to make comments? Just wanted to thank everybody for their time and their thoughtful
I'm sorry to burst in, but I think there is somebody else in the queue. I can't see it, but I have someone who got skipped over at least once. I'm not saying it was intentional. That would be Bernice Casey.
Pilar Meja? So I've got a hand up for.
I don't know about Pilar, but the person that I'm talking about is a parent at Buena Vista Horace Mann named Bernice Casey.
I see that, Bernice, why we're unmuting you.
Thank
and
you.
Then Pilar, we see you as well. Thank you for raising that.
Thank you. I just want to bring up a comment that I've made before. First, I'm so happy to hear from all the Claire Lilienthal families, and it's really unfortunate that our families at Buena Vista couldn't participate. On March 1st, we requested all the information be put in Spanish. That was sent in an email. The district has ignored that, so our community was not able to fully participate. I want to also say some comments that other parents have said. The K-8 presentation that you had a couple of weeks ago had incorrect data in it. We've asked you to rehear the K-8 school overview. And in the slides that you have today, slides 29 and 30, don't look at an immersion that has no general education like Buena Vista Horace Mann. So I really applaud all of the work the DAC committee is doing, but I'm unsure how you can make informed decisions when you're getting information from blogs and you're not hearing from the administrators who administer these successful programs.
Thank you for
Thank
starting
you.
to wrap it up. Thank you,
Hey, Lauren,
Bernice.
I can't type anything on here because I tried posting a question, but I wasn't able to post any question.
Okay, we'll come to you in a second now. Let's finish our public comment.
We have Pilar Meja.
Hello, my name is Pilar Mejia, and I'm a retired teacher. My son's a teacher in the district, and my granddaughter is about to become a teacher also in the district. We're all bilingual, and I really commend the work that you are doing, really trying to understand at a deep level, not only the data, which you definitely need, I concur with other people who have said that, but also the spirit, the values, the community that San Francisco Unified School District is. And so thank you for really taking, well, you've heard a lot from people, but really taking it serious. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go back to one of our, if there's no other public comment from the public, I don't see any. I'm going to go back to our one of our DAC members. Now.
Oh, thank you. I think I was just going to say that I'm very happy to see all these parents come through, and I wish, we had parents in the different languages in different schools that would also come to support language pathway, because I think it's very important to have a language pathway, because I myself taught Tongans for the equity department with SFUSD for one of the semester, and we have a very small population in SFUSD, but I was able to teach the basic language of the Tongan to the few students that we have here at SFUSD, because it is the number one way to identify ourselves. It is our way to know who we are, where we come from, and the strong heritage and culture that we came from in our country, and for every country that each of these students come from. So it's very important that language pathway be available to every community, no matter where you are at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren. Again, appreciate everyone's thoughtful, passionate comments.
Yes, thank you very much. One of the things that came through most clearly from the interviews with the advisory committee members was their value of public comment. So thank you everyone for making time today to do this and to spend time with us. All right, I want to talk a little bit about our May meetings so that we're all on the same page, advisory committee members, and so that I can make sure that you have what you need to participate in these meetings. So the objective for us for May is for you guys to create a recommendation for the superintendent and the board on which criteria to include in decisions about mergers, closures, and co-locations, and include how criteria should be weighted in decisions and your rationale for including things. So here's what I'm thinking about right now for the May 6th agenda and the May 20th agenda, and I'll pause in a moment for you guys to tell me that this isn't quite right or whatever comments it is that you have. I'm thinking in May 6th, we should look at the input from the public survey on the importance of each criteria. We have the results back from the first round of community engagement. I would like for you guys to identify where you agree on prioritization and deprioritization with the public, if there's things that you want to raise that the public didn't prioritize, if you think that there are additional criteria that need to be added because we've missed something. I think we should talk about rationale, because your feedback will be presented to the board along with the public feedback. So we'll share public feedback from the survey and the DAC feedback as the two key pieces of public feedback on criteria. And I think a rationale is a really useful thing. I'd like you to get started on ranking criteria in terms of importance. And I think that probably we should plan for 1 hour so that we could do 1 hour of public comment. So I would suggest that we expand that meeting until 9 p.m. And then for May 20th, I'll take all the things that you guys say on May 6th and try to turn them into a draft recommendation, which I'll send to you in advance for you to review. And you guys will help edit the recommendation as a group. You can add caveats or other messages, feedback that you want to provide the board. I would also suggest that we make that meeting a 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. meeting. DAC members, do you guys have any feedback on the objective of our May meetings or the agenda?
I have a question. Are we not allowed to have working meetings in between these meetings?
All of our meetings need to be public meetings. So we could pick another Monday night if you guys would prefer, and we could do another meeting before May 6th. But that would be how we would need to do this.
I just have a strong inkling that given the because that's such an important thing and it's leading up to it, I don't want it to be rushed, but I also know that we'll all have a lot of input and value added that needs to be documented to it. And I think it might be better if we chunk that process out instead of just smushing it into the one thing.
Yeah,
It's just my 2 cents.
I hear you. We can do a survey to see if we want to add more meetings. Other feedback here?
Yes. This is just my opinion, but it feels like it's a little ironic that now we're being asked to list criteria. And for much of the year, I have felt like we've been given information and given, what the district wants us to have. And when it comes to the crucial moment of a criteria to co-locate or close schools, all of a sudden now we're being asked to list all our criteria and the public. This is my opinion, especially given what I heard tonight from families. As a consultative body only, not decision-making body, which was made really clear to us when we started this process, this journey. I'm hearing more and more comments to us as if we're the ones making the ultimate decisions here. So I'm not shirking my responsibility as a committee member, just stating what was really made really clear to us in this process. Thank you.
Thanks, Ty. Go ahead, Orlando.
I think my comment follows from Ty's. As we prepare for the May 6th meeting and the 20th, it sounds like we're going to be asked to discuss and then provide our thoughts on which criteria should be moved forward, perhaps to the superintendent for the next round of criteria. And on that bullet point 3, I'm curious if someone at the district or our civic edge group can help provide perhaps a list or summary of all the potential criteria we've spoken about or recommended that has been documented, so that we can review that ahead of the meeting. I'm not sure if that's 10 additional, that's somehow themed in a certain way, or maybe it's 100 additional. I just don't want to think about new criteria on the spot if we've already discussed so many great things.
This is a really good segue to my next slide. So I'm going to go to my next slide and then I'll come back and call on Karen, who still has her hand up. But The Civic Edge team has been taking really good notes. And so they pulled out these criteria on the left that you guys have brought up over time. So we've heard racial and economic makeup by school to reduce the impact on disadvantaged kids. We've heard historical inequity of resourcing. We've heard making sure that families have access to schools, particularly based on geography. We've heard student opinion about school culture. We've heard student achievement.
Just
teacher
put it away
turnover.
now, please. It's 8:30.
And financial sustainability and student enrollment. Those are the things that we've heard from you. The things that Stanford proposed are the things here on the right-hand side, in groups of equity, excellence, and effective use of resources. So it seems to me that these things match relatively closely. We will be looking at the Stanford criteria as a place to start. And I will send you guys this document with all of the notes from the meetings that Civic Edge made that makes it possible for us to share the things that you guys have brought up. But thank you for bringing that up. Okay, Karen, I see you have your hand up.
One of the things that doesn't seem to have come up in our meetings, at least to my knowledge, is the civil grand jury report, June 2023, not making the grade, San Francisco's shortage of credentialed teachers, and a subsequent follow-up through the mayor's office and a judge and so on. I think that we still need to figure out how to retain teachers and how some of the problems that teachers face, which haven't been discussed enough. So I'm still hoping there's some space for that. For instance, the exit interview. Why do teachers leave the SFUSD? Well, might be something to say about that. So that civil grand jury report seems important for us to know about.
Great, thanks, Karen. Go ahead, Ed.
The only thing I wanted to add was to kind of build on what Marisha said, actually, which is I wonder if we should, I wonder if it might be better to have a few meetings that are perhaps not 3 hours, and or if we have if we split it up into 3 chunks instead of 2 chunks, like those meetings can remain at 2 hours, because I think tend to get diminishing returns after a certain point, especially in the evening. Anyway, that was just my 2 cents on the process side of it. And then I think in terms of, I don't know whether you flashed up those criteria. I don't know whether those are going to get fleshed out a bit and have some specificity put around them for our consideration, or how we want to go about that, since something like student achievement can mean a lot of different things and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm going to put the notes on criteria in the chat. Thank you for sharing that. That was super helpful. I do think the specificity will be able to get a little bit more specific next time. I'll share the metrics from the second survey as sort of like a way that district staff or Stanford are thinking about specificity, and you guys can let us know if those things seem right to you. And sounds like a survey to decide if we need more meetings or to split up our meetings differently would be really helpful for this group. Okay, any last comments for today? Okay, thank you again for your time. You guys are invaluable, and we really appreciate all the time that you're putting into helping us make good decisions here. So thank you and have a great night. See you in a couple weeks.